Cancel.
Schweezy.
Okay, so it's our 100th episode of Cancel Schweezy. Therefore, I thought it would be a good time to actually learn how to make a podcast. So most of the comments I get, and a majority of this is from my fans. Not fans, I messed that up. A majority of it is the what I hear is from my friends who like to tell me my podcast is awful. It's the worst fucking shit they've ever listened to. Can't believe people actually listen to this shit and you make money off of this. So I want to say fuck you, but also, you know, you can't always be like, hey, sometimes what if I'm wrong? You know, sometimes you have to do that. So today we're going to read the WikiHow article, how to make a good podcast. Now there are multiple articles on the site WikiHow on how to make a podcast or starting a podcast or setting up your podcast. But this is how to make a good podcast, which apparently we don't have the soundboards. No, we can. It's time. Apparently, need to learn 100 episodes in. Time to learn how to make a good podcast. Apparently, that's what we need to do. It's pretty easy to start up a podcast and make a few episodes. All you need is some basic audio recording and editing equipment to make a good podcast, though it requires a strong kind of dedication to quality, enthusiasm to connect with listeners. Seek inspiration from podcasts and podcasters you like, but make you podcast something that suits your passion and goals. Don't forget to have fun with it. So, yeah, some people make these careers. So let's talk here. I have an $800 audio interface. This microphone's $400. This jacket was $600. And then the video equipment, don't ask that. The audio equipment is what you need to listen to. I got thousands of dollars of plugins on my voice too when you end up listening to it as well. So yeah, let's just do it. Create interesting content. Listen to podcasts for ideas and inspiration. If you're interested in making a podcast, you probably already like listening to them. Look for common factors in the podcast you like listening to and use them to help you brainstorm the format and focus your own podcast. For instance, do you prefer true crime or humor podcasts? Do you like podcasts with one, two, or many hosts or with guests? How long is your favorite podcast episode like to run? How often does it come out? Get inspiration from other podcasts. Can we talk about listen to podcasts for ideas and inspiration? You know, I always feel like on my lazy weeks, and I probably shouldn't admit this on the podcast, but I will go through like BuzzFeed articles, and it's not like I don't have good content. It's like I just my preferred format is to like just talk about what I did if I did something in the week, and I like to talk about it. But sometimes it's just like I play a show and it's just whatever, or I'm just working on recording something. It's just like, it's just what it is, but like then some weeks I have something fun. That's what I usually like to talk about. Then I talk about like what I watch on TV too, and BuzzFeed, and it's like people somehow fucking relate to it, and it's funny. So apparently that's inspiration for some people listening to my show. What did I get inspiration from? I like Your Mom's House. That's probably my favorite podcast, and like they like to show clips and talk to people and stuff like that. Problem is they interview a lot of comedians, and my main group is musicians, and a lot of musicians aren't funny, and you try to bring up something funny or try to bring out their dark side, they're not as fun. It's just how it is. So yeah, that's so I just want it's more comedy. It's a one-person show. I think I want to move on to I'm going to move maybe after we've got 100 in. We've done like a couple with guests, but I think we need to move on to get some more guests on the show. I think that's what we need to move to. That's a good idea. So yeah, that's actually a good sign too. Like, figure how you want your podcast to be, and advice to anyone making a podcast. Your first 10 episodes are going to suck. After that, you really kind of figure out what you're doing. So you just kind of have to move through it and go full throttle. You know what they say? Choose a podcast topic that you're passionate about. There's no magic formula for making a hit podcast that draws in a huge audience. Your best bet is to create a podcast that covers material you're excited about, that you'll have fun discussing, and that you'd want to listen to. That way, no matter how many other people end up tuning into your show, you'll produce something that you can be proud of. Cinema history podcast, yeah, classic movie. This is actually something I would talk about, like, I think if you go back to the earlier episodes, I really like the news is like, I just find the most ridiculous articles and read them. Now it's like ridiculous articles. I feel like I have something to say. Some articles even I would also say that like aren't necessarily funny. They're just like music topic or something I'm interested in talking about, and I'll talk about it. So that's really, that's what I would say. I had changed the news segments in Cancel Schweezy. It's really talk about topics I'm interested in, or some topics are kind of ridiculous, some current event topics, but like I'm trying to stay away from like the hot button topics like Amber Heard, Johnny Depp. I'm like not getting into that. That's not something I really want to get into. I stayed away from the Queen for the most part, minus the fact that Channel 5 was playing the Emoji Movie during the funeral. So yeah, I mean, I got that. So yeah, I do typically, and even when I do find like BuzzFeed or TV shows, I always talk about things I want to talk about. Never necessarily try to talk about things I don't want to talk about, because I don't know. That's not how you make entertainment, folks. That's true story. That's not how you make a show. That's why, your friends are like, we're going to start a sports podcast. And you're like, okay, I'm not really into sports, but if you like sports and you can actually are passionate and really do enjoy what you're talking about, I think you can do a really good job on like the sports podcast. That's, that's how it is. That's how you can do it. 3, determine which format suits your topic and style. There are no rules when it comes to making a podcast, which is, of course, one of the format's most appealing qualities. That said, podcasts do tend to follow one or more of several common formats: interview, monologue, multiple hosts, narrative, mixed. So I do mostly monologue. I've done interview, multiple host shows. I would say, it would be a good, if everyone's like, I want to do a podcast, I say, try to do multiple hosts and then mix in interviews / just regular topics and stuff like that. I always try to tell people, like, yeah, you think you want to do an interview show and you think like that's what I really want to do. I don't want to be sitting there talking the whole time. But then you realize it's so much easier to just sit and talk for like an hour and a half versus like actually, you have to find people to interview, schedule things to line up, and then like you do that, and then the week's over, and then you have to find another one. It's hard to build those up and stuff like that. So when you can, especially, I always say like, either do a solo thing and then add, and then do the interview. I would say mix is probably the best. I definitely would say multiple hosts, and then that way some weeks you can just do that, and then some weeks you can do that plus add interviews in too. So that's this is more like my advice on podcasters, but I'm learning just as much as you folks do. I'm on 100 episodes, and to be honest, I think our quality on our audio quality on every episode, spot on. Video quality, questionable. But audio quality, well, I think I've gotten better with the video. Video is like my learning curve, but like our audio has always been perfect. We've probably got like $2,000 worth of audio equipment using. So, this is the type of guy you're getting. Definitely. That's what I do. I think I'm technically a monologue show, and I think eventually I do think at some point we're gonna start moving to mixed stuff like that. So I think that's gonna be really cool. So we're at episode 100. Number 4, put in far more time preparing than you do recording. Sure, you can make a podcast by simply hitting record and saying whatever is on your mind, Mike, but good podcasts, even unscripted ones, require a great deal of research, learning, and preparation. Many podcasters spend at least 10 hours preparing for every episode, every hour of podcast they record. I would tell people, like, people think, that podcasts it's just so fucking easy. You just sit down and record it and then post it. And I was like, no, it's a lot more work, and I've really had to streamline it. So, like, I definitely do. When I sit down, I just press record and just start going. And if I, like, mess up something, I just stop and keep going. No one really gives a shit when you do stuff like that. Basically, what I have to do, to tell you the truth. So, we do in 3 segments. We do our news segment, previous week, right now. We do our middle section, that's BS. I can talk about whatever I want in that section. Then the end, we do advice. So, throughout the week, I have to do tons of research to try to find good news articles that I think I could actually talk about. Good advice. I get sent in multiple, advice questions, and then I kind of sort through all of them to see what I can actually answer and do correctly. And then, in the middle, I have to figure out that. And a lot of times the middle section can be what's really hard, because I just don't know what to talk about in that middle section throughout the week. So, basically, I would say I do 10 plus. And not to forget that the recording process is actually the easiest part for me, because I press record on my camera, set up the green screen, press record on my computer, then eventually sync it. And then you got to go editing. So you got to edit all together, bounce it for a full episode, take the audio from that. So you have the audio portion of it. Then I split it up into highlights. That way I can post it on highlights. Make a TikTok, so I can post it on TikTok too. So people on TikTok will start listening too. Some of you are from TikTok, so hi. If you started on TikTok, tell me hello. And then I have to make promos for, everything I need to make promos for. And then there's the thumbnails for those and stuff like that as well. It's a whole ordeal. So yeah, people don't realize. I'm like, yeah, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of time to do podcasts. Can slim it down beforehand, but yeah, you really have to plan it out and really have to work. So like, I'm always like, you'll see me after Wednesdays. I usually try to like just do errands, and I will probably start on the next week's podcast the Wednesday I release it, and then Thursday, Friday if I have gigs, Saturday, Sundays I'm usually on it. Monday mornings I usually do it, and I just record in the afternoons, evenings. So you have that. So yeah, podcasts take a lot to record. Maybe I'm doing pretty good at this, folks. Maybe you should shut the fuck up. 5, write a script or sketch out the content for your podcast. Scripting or sketching you should make the most important part of your prep time. That way you can be confident in what you want to say and how you want to convey it without having to overdo it in editing and re-recording afterwards. I know how to talk, so I'm not too worried about that portion of it, but I do kind of keep a loosely outlined script. But I really don't talk about much, like the news section is really I just copy and paste down the article. I do sometimes trim down the articles because like at some point just me reading for like 5 minutes straight can be just like brutal. Not just mainly brutal for me, and you probably get bored too. People need to learn how to write shorter articles for this stuff, because I'm like, you can get more into it, and then you're just putting in fluff to just make it longer, and I don't think you need to. So basically, the news segments are just the news I read. The scripted section, or the middle section, a lot of times, like what I just read about my 100th wedding, basically that's more like I had to talk about a couple topics and I kind of just ramble from there. Maybe some things I do want to make more clear that I want to make sure I bring up, but yeah, I very loosely script that. Then the Ask Schweezy section of the show, it's just the questions. Sometimes I do put down a couple things I need to bring up during answering the question, but besides that, and that's very rarely I even do that as well. Sometimes I really wing that section because I think it's more fun and a little bit more funny. So I definitely do that as well. So yeah, definitely if you're doing a solo show like mine, you do, definitely if you're like, I'm gonna do a monologue show type of this, definitely have everything planned out, like topics you want to bring up and talk about, and especially ideas you want to bring up as well. Like, you're definitely going to want to do that as well. And podcasting advice, 100th episode, I'm just going to teach you all how to do a podcast. All right. Pretend you're talking to a single member of your audience. This one is the key of the great podcast. You want each listener to feel like you're speaking directly to them. Skip, sketch, and perform your podcast with an image of your ideal listener in your mind. I kind of do that, but I do definitely more like public speaking, not necessarily doing stand-up, but like I'm giving a speech or I'm talking and stuff like that. That's generally how I think about it, or I'm having a conversation. That's kind of how I think about these things. You do you though, but yeah, you definitely have to pretend like you're giving a speech or something like that, or like you're on a voicemail. I don't know. There's something about putting this a microphone in front of my face. Like I'm a different person when this comes up. So yeah, you do have to pretend like you're having not necessarily a conversation, but you're giving a speech and you're saying things like that. And I definitely don't even actually know how to teach. I guess it's just public speaking. Part 2, producing your podcast. Gather the necessary recording hardware for your podcast. So yeah, I know how to describe. So it's something you need a laptop or desktop computer. Yep, I have one of those. A microphone that attaches to your computer's USB port. Well, this attaches to my interface, which is Thunderbolt 2, which I know it's an old format. I have an old computer. Still making the show. Shut the fuck up. Headphones. Yeah, I do have headphones and I do have monitors as well. That's just, I like to monitor. You don't necessarily need that, but I think like if you don't know what you're doing, you should definitely try to monitor yourself. That way you can actually kind of know what's going on. And if you're having like issues, it'll like cut in and out, but yeah, but I don't know. Sometimes the monitoring on standard computers can be can delay a little bit, so it can be a little weird. a pop filter and mic stand. I have like a desk mic stand, and this is kind of a pop filter, but a lot of guys don't like these as pop filters, and they use real ones. Yeah, and those don't really work if you're doing a video podcast because it'll block your face, and that's not cool. But yep, that's definitely what you. A sound mixing board. This is not an essential option, but no, you just need an audio interface. You plug it into you plug your mic into, you plug it into your computer. Don't try to do anything else. The podcast on last week. What the fuck is it called? Oh God, I forgot the name. I know it. It's the highly contested podcast. They had a Rode Pod mixer or something like that, and basically just has everything you need. Like plug it in. You have four outputs for headphones, four inputs for microphones, sound buttons for your soundboard. Cool ass deal, and I think that was really cool. And yeah, I definitely say if you're gonna start a podcast, get that. Get however many mics you need. Get however many headphones you need. You're basically good to go after that. Record your podcast in a room with at least basic soundproofing. Yeah, I would say get more. Do not get a condenser mic. Maybe get like a dynamic microphone. This is going to pick up less room noise. You just need a room that's pretty quiet and not super echoey, to be honest with you. I'll say that. Use DAW software to edit your podcast. Digital audio workstation software enables you free or low cost to get the job done. A lot of people use GarageBand. Yeah, they brought that up. It's free with your MacBook. Audacity is also free. You just have to download that from the internet. I remember some people were like wanting me to, like, they're starting a podcast and want me to get advice. Oh, so you're using GarageBand or Audacity? I'm like, well, I use Logic because I use that for my regular music producing. I think Reaper's really good. It costs like $80, $70, $80, but you can just keep renewing your free trial for some reason. Don't know what that's all about. Stuff like that. So yeah, those are some free options and some good ones. Choose a podcast hosting service that suits your needs. I use SoundCloud because I don't know if it's the best, but I do think that people do listen to podcasts on SoundCloud versus like Buzzsprout and some other Podbean. I know a couple like that people aren't like going on that site to listen to podcasts, but they would go to SoundCloud to listen to music. So that's something. Do that. Produce consistent content on a consistent schedule. Yes, that's very good. Be consistent. And I know it's hard some weeks, but you got to keep doing it. It's not always easy. Make sure you pick a good time to release episodes too. They also brought that up. Building your audience. Of course, social media. Also, social media is good. Word of mouth. Like email, voicemail. Yeah. You got to make sure you have that shit. Grow your podcast as many different ways possible. Clearly easy. Build name recognition as a guest on other podcasts. Yes, go on other people's podcasts as much as you can, which is very weird because I don't have as many podcast friends. But like, yeah, I'm always like, I usually go on other people's podcasts. That's usually a thing when I have music to promote. Highly contested, I was just on there. But yeah, if I definitely have something I need to promote, like every week I do this podcast. Like I don't need to be like that, but like if someone wants me on, I'm like, yeah, I'll for sure go on your podcast. That's no big deal. But for the most part, if I'm gonna ask to go on someone else's podcast, it's gonna be because I have something to promote. But if someone asks me to go on their podcast, I usually say yes. I don't even care. To be honest, like I don't really care. I'm like, I'll bring my own mic. Doing Zoom, I'll record myself. It's no big deal. I don't even care if you're bad because I'm gonna be good. Because like I know I'm gonna be good, so I don't have anything to worry about. And I have a good enough filter to know I'm like, hey, you shouldn't say this on the internet to people. The trick is I do it anyways. That's the problem. Like that. I think that's it. So, yeah. What would you say I missed in the process of making a podcast? And is my podcast living up to these expectations that have now been given towards me? Only you can decide. Hey there, you just checked out a highlight from Cancel Schweezy. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you learned something and that you are now a smarter individual. Just so you know, we have full episodes and other many, many highlights available now. Click here for the next best thing that you can go check out as well. And make sure you press that subscribe button and press that notification bell. That way you get updated anytime we make a new post or anytime that we make a new highlight or full episode. So thank you. Honk if you love butt drugs and stay awesome.